All right. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching this afterwards, we are talking today about the evaluation process that we are trying to kickstart into gear before the retreat in September. Although not everybody on this call is attending the retreat, or not everybody watching this webinar will be attending the retreat, we are hoping that you will join in and start with the evaluation piece so that we can get a really full picture of not only our leadership team, but everybody who's involved in PAC and everybody who's working with PAC from multiple perspectives, rather than just like last year when I went through with each of you individually and did your rubric. This will give us a better picture from the broader spectrum. So you'll still do that one leadership one-on-one meeting with someone who is a lead in your area, but you'll also get lots of feedback from lots of other people. So it's not just going to be one person kind of telling you what they think based on the month or weeks that they've known you, which is kind of where we started. So thank you all for being a part of that process. Thumbs up, does everyone remember that process that we went through with the personnel file and the rubric? Okay, so with the personnel file, that's where you did a self-assessment, and that piece will be the same. You'll get your personnel file. Thank goodness Lisa, who I'm not sure she's on the call yet, she's going to join us if she isn't. That may be the 248 number there. Okay, so Lisa is my... Hi Lisa, welcome.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I just thought since you asked if I was there, I'd say yes, I am here listening in.
Perfect. So this is Lisa, everybody, who is a godsend right now. She's my new assistant.
Nice phone. She looks terrific.
She looks amazing. She's got great structure and circle there. She's basically taken all of the personnel files and did that last little piece that I needed done to be able to share them back with you so that you can send me the signed copy that was meant to happen in April. So that will be coming to you right after this call. They're all done. They're ready to go. Each of you will get yours, and then you'll send back the signed PDF. You'll still do your self-review line by line, just like you did on the personnel file in, well, end of last year, early this year for some of you. So that will still serve as your self-evaluation. The rubric that we're going to talk about, that I did for everyone this past year, is how we're going to shift forward into having a little bit more feedback, multiple perspectives, rather than just the one perspective on the rubric, and it's a one-time deal. So, any thoughts or questions so far? Are we clear on where we're headed? Yeah, okay. Collective nodding. If you do need to say anything, feel free to just unmute yourself. Let me go ahead and show you. Whoops, wrong one. That's the one we're going to talk about in just a second, but this is the blank document. So you'll notice it looks similar, but it's slightly different. Before we had these pieces, novice, proficient, accomplished, and master, inside the rubric, which made these notes columns really skinny and hard to write in. Nicely, for people who are visual, it was really hard to kind of follow what you were saying. So what we ended up doing was we pulled out the descriptors of what is novice, proficient, accomplished, and master for each of the two main sections. The top section is, for the most part, based on your role as a whole, or you as a whole within PAC. So we're talking about you have an awareness of the skill if you're a novice, but this may not be something that you do very regularly, or you may just be really new to the language that we use. So it's hard for me to really say where you are with this. Proficient is really where we're aiming for the majority of our PAC people. It's where we're aiming to be is proficient. If you're proficient, it means that you are doing what's needed and you can do it independently I'm not sure let me go ahead and see if I can mute whoever that is.
Maybe me.
It could be. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone just so that we don't have extra noise. Don't forget to unmute if you do want to say something. So, proficient is where we're aiming as a company because we're also new to this whole reorganization. If you are doing your skill competently on your own and you're working independently, you may have questions and you may slip up from time to time. And when people throw wrenches at you, that may throw you off as well, and you may make mistakes. But for the most part, you're proficient and you do this on your own. To move to accomplished, it's really when you're helping other people gain a proficient level. So you're either training them, you're getting someone else ready to take over a piece of your role, or you're stepping up and being proactive in a way that you're actually able to help someone else stick to their timelines or stick to their goals at a proficient level. Tipa, I see that you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
I do. I want to chime in just a tiny bit. When we say that you're proficient if you're doing it on your own, we don't mean that you're off on your own doing something. It means that you don't require coaching, mentoring, or prompting to perform the activity that you're performing. And that activity will generally be within the structure of a group. So you're fulfilling your role and meeting the need of others in your group. It doesn't mean you go off by yourself and do your thing. And I just want to be clear about performing independently as opposed to doing something alone.
Good point. Then we move into master, which is realistically, very few of us have had time to get it to this point in a lot of these areas, because what it requires is not only can you do this skill without even thinking and you guide others to proficiency, of course, but you're actually guiding others and growing others to be accomplished at that level. So this takes a whole nother level of capability and time, which when we look at our company realistically, most of us are looking at about a year at this point. Some of us a little longer, but to be able to develop these skills in other people, we're still looking at about a year because we've had a bunch of people join us this past year. Another change that we've made here is this key. Instead of using a big X and a little x, because sometimes Word decided to change the little x's to big X's, and it visually was hard for people to sort of just quickly scan through and look and see which was which. We're doing a large X still for where the majority of the skill is observed or demonstrated. So the most of where that person is, the big X goes under that column. If they have something holding them back in a category maybe a little bit, they're still novice in some ways, but they're mostly proficient, I put an O in novice. There's still one skill holding them back. Or on the flip side, they're mostly proficient, but they've got some skills. They're really working hard to develop this at an accomplished level. I'd put the O in the accomplished level. You don't have to have both in every single category. You can just put X's all the way down if you feel confident in that rating. But we wanted to offer a way for you to do if you were really struggling between two. The X is the majority, the O is where they're either moving towards or held back. If there's something, because we're asking you to do a decent amount of these evaluations and from maybe small interactions or a small project, you may not observe some of these pieces in the person that you're evaluating. So you can simply leave it blank in the novice, proficient, accomplished, master category, and then put NA in the notes. One thing that some of the leadership team found helpful was possibly opening that up for a little discussion of self-reflection rather than just leaving it blank and moving on, having the person do a little talk about what they think, where they think they are. You don't have to add it in to the actual rubric itself, but it just gives you a chance to kind of talk through and practice your coaching language if you'd like. So that's this piece up here. And then, as I said, it's broken into two main chunks. So the overall PAC skills, this is where you are in your role and your interactions with people. We'll go through one that's filled out as an example, but notice just the subtle differences, basically more space for this, more space for notes, less space for the X's and O's. And then we've added this comment section at the bottom before you go into the next section. We've also added descriptors here so that you know a little bit more about what you're actually evaluating on. Down here in the comments section, you notice it's 2 positives and 1 area for improvement. So we're really practicing our coaching language even within this evaluation tool. We want to make sure that we offer 2 positives and something to grow on for every single time, rather than simply stating all of the positives that somebody does, because this evaluation tool is meant to be a way for us to improve. As we go down to the next section, this is more about your role. And so it's more specific to projects or specific interactions or a specific phone call or meeting that you're assessing. So for example, if I join, let's say, the weekly marketing meeting, and I wanted to assess someone who's either a part of that meeting or running the meeting, then I would really focus in on that one interaction or their role in that meeting, not trying to look at all the different roles that they play, because we do wear a lot of different hats and it can be really hard to try to get it all in this one rubric. We're really trying to keep it simple, and this evaluation tool is just one at a time, one small detail at a time. So whether you're basing it on a project, a meeting, or potentially even just a phone call interaction that you had with someone, or an email interaction that you had with someone about a specific topic, we're really trying to keep this bottom part to the role specific. So you can see the novice, proficient, accomplished, and master are a little bit broader, but similar idea. New to the role, needs guidance to complete the work, and you're constantly checking in. You emailed them, they never emailed you back, so you're emailing again a week later. How is that going? Proficient means, again, working independently, not that you're working alone, but that you're able to do all of the pieces needed to complete this for the team or the role or the project in a timely way that really fits without a whole lot of extra check-in. Accomplished, skilled in this role, works independently, and now thinking about moving, again, a little more proactively to help others meet those deadlines and goals. Master, not only helping others meet those deadlines, but creating new systems, new processes, or creating the whole setup to let the machine run smoothly. So this is someone who's really creating and following up and fine-tuning rather than following the script. The same key down here to keep it simple. Again, we've added more descriptors. The comment section, oops, I forgot to add in the 2 positives and 1 area to improve. And then these percentages here, if you could go ahead and fill those out before you send in these evaluations, that would be great. It's very easy to do if you just simply count up the number of X's or O's within each area of novice on this scale, as well as this scale. Count the total. The total goes in the front here. So if there are 6 novices, and then I counted up 3 or 2 proficients, and 1 accomplished and 1 master, the total number of X's and O's of the whole chart is 10. 6 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. So these are all out of 10, and I'm doing that to make it easy on myself. If you get a number like 13, this line, as we say in 5th grade math, is division. So all you do on your little calculator is 6 divided by 10. If it's 13, it's 6 divided by 13, and just take the first 2 places of the decimal. So this one is obviously 60%. This one's 20%. And if you need help on this, please don't hesitate to ask or send it in blank and let me know that you'd like it filled in. Either is fine. So when it says current level achieved, this person is a novice because the majority of their X's are in novice. Whoops. So that's all I put there. I click save and I'm done. So any questions so far? Is this making sense, clear, relatable enough to the rubric that we did before? I'm gonna
Amanda, I have a question. What about the O's?
What about the O's? So the O's are for what we used before with the little X's. The O's are where you're either still held off into the column right before, so if you're a proficient trainer, let's say, but every now and then you slip back into that novice way of getting lost. You need those cards still. You can't remember what the next step is without the cards. You'd still have an O in novice because there's still one piece holding you back. But most of the time, you're proficient. So the X is in the proficient column. The O is sort of either what's holding you back, or if you're mostly proficient in training, and then all of a sudden you really have started to show that you're actually throwing the cards to the side, you're putting your own flair, and you've tried out 2 or 3 cool activities that really have grown you to an accomplished level, but it's not all the time and it's not with every training. That O would shift into the accomplished, but the X stays in proficient. You're mostly proficient, but every now and then you've got glimpses of accomplished. You're really working hard towards that next level.
So you just count the X. The O is just to give it a, so you only count the X's. The O's are not counted.
Right. I have been counting the O's, but I think it's safer if we just count X's. Great question. Anybody else feeling?
Amanda, one other question. Are we planning, and this is, I don't know for sure, are we planning on being able to do these manually for people who are not as comfortable on the computer, or are we going to ask everybody to do it on the computer?
That's a great question. So one thing that you could do if you are not comfortable on the computer and you'd like to handwrite it in, you're absolutely welcome to print out the blank document, fill it out by hand, as long as it's legible, and then use your Genius Scan app to take a picture of it as if it's a document and send that through instead of the Word document. Okay. We'll talk about the process at the end of this for how are you actually going to do it, but I wanted to go ahead and show you an example of one document that's filled out about our friend Mitzi, who is part of our team. She is a lead of the project that the newbie is filling this report out. So someone who's newer, trying out this evaluation for the first time, you can kind of see how this goes, and I've counted the O's at the bottom, so we'll ignore the percentages at the bottom for now, but this is how it'll go. So Mitzi is showing that she's mostly master because with her PPA, every call and email has begun with a connection. The conversation has time and space for the group to get talking. They're not just jumping right into the project, but then actually they're getting to the project as it goes later on in the meetings. You know, the PPA has details that fit the project instead of just random talk about weather. So she's mostly master. There may be a few slip-ups. However, for coaching language for this person, Mitzi is at proficient. There's a lot of strong coaching language during the team meetings and emails, and the person says, I never feel that I'm in trouble, and Mitzi offered positive feedback after the call, but so far it only seems to happen in email format. So for this person, this is something that's really sticking with them. It's sticking in their craw, and they really are disappointed in how this coaching language is being used for them. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong for everyone, but for them it just feels like they need something other than positives within the email format. They're looking for more personal connection, whether it's via phone or whether it's during the meeting itself. Multiple perspectives. Again, I've used a lot of X's and O's just to kind of give you a sense of how to use them. You do not have to have O's on all of these. You could just simply do X's all the way through if you wanted to. She definitely seems to understand my perspective. She's able to help other people see why some parts of this project are taking longer for me than expected, and helping me share that perspective is moving her towards accomplished. So she's in accomplished now because she hasn't just done it for herself. She's actually getting other people to see why my part's taking so long, which is getting someone else to proficient. So this person feels supported and that Mitzi is really doing this at an accomplished level. Agenda aware. The project is definitely driven by Mitzi's agenda awareness. This is not something Mitzi struggles with. Next steps and confidence in moving forward is something that Mitzi does well. So this is accomplished, moving to master. They may just not have had enough interaction with Mitzi or enough to really mark this at master. She's not really talking about growing this skill in anyone else. So she feels confident that she can be an accomplished level with agenda awareness, but not yet a proficient level with agenda awareness, but she doesn't feel that she's accomplished yet. So Mitzi can't move to master until everyone in the group is feeling more accomplished, or at least this person is feeling more accomplished. With flexibility, however, you can see a big difference between where Mitzi is. Mitzi is generally flexible, but it can be frustrating for her, and if the person assessing Mitzi is noticing that frustration, then that's at that proficient level. She's definitely not training other people to be very flexible if Mitzi's showing her frustration every time something gets messed up. Then down here in the comments section, again, we want 2 positives and then 1 area of growth, and this should be the piece that really stands out the most. Overall, Mitzi is strong in her leadership of this project for me. Her PPA and ability to understand and share with the group why things are shifting is extremely helpful for me. So there's 2 positives there: strong leadership and then PPA, and really helping the group understand why there have been timeline shifts. One piece that I would like to see a change in is stronger use of positive feedback. So again, that piece that really stood out to this person is that use of coaching language and positive feedback during the calls so that I know what I'm doing is working, and maybe more specifics, because it sounds like they're being a little too general. So this is just one person, but if we can get lots of different people from lots of different positions with Mitzi, then you'll start to have a better picture of where Mitzi actually is in some of these areas. When you shift down here to the next section, we're looking again more specifically at the role. And this may be where you have a little bit more of a struggle to fill some of these out. So I've left a couple of them blank so that you can see what it would be like if you're not sure. So with timeliness, obviously this assessor is very indecisive and has a hard time every time deciding whether Mitzi is accomplished, master, or proficient. There's always an O, and that's okay too. Some of us just have a hard time deciding and making that final, this is where they are. With Doodle and the Zoom request, we have held every meeting without cancellations, and only 1 has gone over time. Very important. Mitzi's email responses are within the 2-day window, and we're all held to that 48-hour window. If we don't meet it, we don't meet it. That's just a piece to grow on or improve in. And she's reminded me twice of the need to return a call or email within my own 2-day window. So this makes Mitzi moving from accomplished, right? She's really helping me become proficient so that I'm meeting all my deadlines. This next piece, because the project is not done yet, there's no way for me to assess project completion. It feels like we're moving towards completion, but we haven't met that deadline yet, and this evaluation was due, and so I just mark it in it because I can't say whether we completed it on time or not. For productivity, Mitzi seems to be very productive, but it feels a bit like I can't be as productive as she would like sometimes. So not great coaching language, but this is okay. This is someone really trying to say what they think, and sometimes that's how things go on these evaluations. Not sure how this fits, but it's a bit of a challenge for me. So we don't have the positives here that we've had, other than Mitzi seems to be very productive. So really thinking about when we make those comments, It's okay if this is a concern I want to voice, but then possibly thinking about whether I want to maybe do a call with this person before I give the evaluation.
And what I'd also add is this is an opportunity when I'm looking at everybody's evals on somebody, I would yellow highlight this and see if this kind of thing is coming up multiple times. Then it gives me something to know as the overall evaluator, this is something I want to really pay attention to, along with some positives I might have noted. So one of the things that you might want to be thinking about for those of you who have others you're going to be evaluating, and you're going to be doing somebody's evaluation. So it's not just that you're going to get evaluated, you're doing someone else's, is to realize that this may be something that helps the person who's going to do the evaluation have data that's going to help them grow this person's skill set. So the reason we're asking for each of you to do it is as the next level is looking at this, it gives us things we can use that are valuable and meaningful, not just our opinion. So that's what this is all about, really.
Thank you. So the next piece is the financial steward. You'll notice here we've broken out the financial piece significantly into these two main sections. And we also broke out collaboration and leadership. Those were together before. So we've separated those out because those are two really separate skills. For this one, the financial steward, the evaluator had something to say, but they didn't feel like they could really rate this one because while Mitzi's able to share with the team financials regularly, I assume the numbers are accurate, but I don't know about approval. And this is all about gaining approval and accuracy of the numbers. Unless I've checked with Dan or unless I've done any research on my own, this is a tough one for me to judge. So I can say something about it so at least the over-evaluator can see what's been said, but I don't necessarily have a rating for Mitzi. The same for financial accountability. I've been doing my pieces, but I don't know about this bigger piece here. Collaboration, finally we got 1X. As a group member, she meets her goals and deadlines and seems to keep us all on track. Very basic, very simple. At this point in the evaluation, the comments get a little shorter because you get a little tired. That happens. So if you want to switch it up and maybe start at the bottom sometimes, it's always a good idea because it can be a long process. It doesn't need to be. It should take you about 5 to 10 minutes to do. But if you're really, really thinking through, you may be thinking a little too hard. You maybe want to take a break, come back and try to get it done in a sort of quicker way. We're trying to remember to keep it detailed and about one project, one call, one email, or something a little bit, maybe a group of emails around this one idea. Rather than trying to cover the person's whole bases of the year that you've known them or the months that you've known them. Last but not least, the leadership skill. She feels that this is a strong piece for Mitzi and enjoys the group and it's a fun team to be a part of. Doesn't need to be a lot there if things are going really well. If there's not something that's going well, then that possibly could go here. If you feel like there's a lot of non-coaching language or there's a lot of missteps or a lot of drop balls in the leadership part, that's where that would go. Again, 2 positives and 1 area for improvement. Mitzi has been a strong leader on this project. She's very timely in her responses and actions. So those are 2 really important pieces to this evaluator. One thing I would like to see is a more realistic view of productive work. So going back again to that piece that really stuck out to this person. I'm struggling to meet the demands of the tasks on my own. Now, when I'm reading that evaluation, that could mean that this person is not reaching out for enough help, or it could mean that Mitzi hasn't set up a strong enough support system. So again, I'd go back, as Teepa said, and look at the different evaluations from different people and start to really try to figure out, is this on the support end or is this on the lead end, and how can we make that meet together in the middle a little bit more? So again, none of this process is meant to put anyone in a box or get anyone in trouble. It's more of a how can we grow as a company and make sure that we're moving forward and not getting stuck in our same old ways or same old habits. At the bottom here, as I said, I counted the O's as well. But I agree with the shift, and thank you, Catherine, for pointing it out. We are not going to count the O's, only the X's. So basically, you'll just go up the row, count how many novice, how many proficient, how many accomplished, how many master, and then this person is generally, Mitzi is accomplished because she's got 52% in accomplished. Okay, so I'm going to pause there because that was a lot. We have about 15 minutes left, unless we absolutely need more time, but I'd like to go ahead and start to wrap up. Before I move on to the rollout process, are there any thoughts, questions, concerns now that you've seen an example of one that's completely filled out, but also with some missing pieces so that you don't have to feel like you've got to fill out every single chunk?
I'm going to add one element. If anybody feels like I don't think I can do this for whatever reason, I would rather you talk through it with somebody and at least get an evaluation in than be so uncomfortable doing it on somebody that you don't do it. So I would rather you go through this form with the other person together. You guys do it together blank and just go through it than not do it at all. So if your discomfort is high, then the way to get over that is just to start doing it with somebody rather than doing it on somebody and talking about it afterward or giving it to them afterward. Whatever your comfort level is, start there and build out, because we want you to work with each other and getting more comfortable with each other, giving feedback on these kinds of areas of growth and development, because that's what this is about. That's what it's all based on. So if you're uncomfortable writing about people, then talk to them, but get it done.
So the hope is that you will fill these out, multiple ones of these. So last year for the retreat, I asked you to fill out a bunch of self-reflections. You're only being asked to do one self-reflection on that same personnel file that you've already done. So you're really looking focused at yourself on that personnel file. If you'd like to fill out a rubric for yourself, go for it. But the idea of the rubric is to assess someone else in your interaction. So you're really thinking about who all have I interacted with and who all do I interact with over the next really 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, and then we really shift into pretty close to retreat time. So over the next 2 to 3 weeks is really what we're looking at. If you want to go back in time and do somebody, let's say you just did a course in July or June, or you did the apprentice days, or you've had a really strong project that you've been working through with someone recently, and you'd like to focus in on that piece, go for it. The point is to do lots of these in small doses rather than doing huge evaluation all at once of each person. So the more we have, the better. And even if you don't feel like it's as important to include, maybe I only know 3 of those pieces about this person from my interaction with them. But those 3 pieces can really help us start to see patterns, even if you fill out nothing else on the rubric. So we'd rather have rubrics that are not complete, but from more people that you interact with, than one large, completely filled out, took me hours rubric. The more people that you interact with, the more evaluations you do. So those of you that are leaders and peers and then support, you're going to have a decent amount of, evaluations to fill out. The goal is that you will really look at the different relationships and also start to think about who do I interact with the most and maybe start there. Because it can be a little bit easier to start with someone that you have more interaction with. But remember to keep it focused to one specific role or part of their role rather than I talked with them about this and this and this and this. Try to stick to one piece because the rubric can get a little overwhelming if you try to include everything that you know about this person. We are going to hopefully then have all of these rubrics in within 3 weeks. So that puts us at Today is the 28th, so we are at, August. 1, 2, 3. August 18th would be the last day to get these guys in. So as many as you can kind of do over the next 3 weeks would be ideal. Like I said, going peer-to-peer, if you've got someone who you're working with as an equal, I was a support mentor, you were a support mentor, we can do an evaluation of each other. It doesn't always have to go back and forth, but the idea would be that you would let the person know, by the way, I'd like to do an evaluation real quick, so that they're not feeling caught off guard if they have a phone conversation with you and then you're telling them afterwards that you evaluated them. That can be a little startling, so you may just want to sort of let them know ahead of time that you're interested in doing an evaluation based on whether it was a course, whether it was a phone call, whether it was a project. The follow-up would be, once you've done the evaluation, you send it to them, or, as I mentioned before, if there's something of a sensitive nature in there that you really wanted to address with them, you may ask for a phone call or a Zoom to go over the evaluation before you send it to them, just so that it's not as shocking. If there was something that you really wanted to try to coach through, you may want to address that person to person rather than paper to person, just because that can be a little surprising. The invitation should always be there that if you send the person your evaluation, as soon as you fill out your evaluation, you either send it to them or send them a meeting request. When they get the evaluation, they then have the option to ask you for a meeting. If something's unclear, if they want to just ask you about something that you wrote or really check in on something, it really stood out to them. So once I've sent the evaluation, it always goes with the openness and availability to have a meeting if need be. You don't have to meet about any of the evaluations if you don't want to. It just offers you the chance. So every evaluation that you fill out, you offer the chance for a meeting, or you ask for a meeting ahead of time, and then you want to make sure that you send the evaluation, the rubric itself, to the person and to Lisa, which you all got to meet Lisa earlier. She is going to compile all of those evaluations, which is a huge job, for the leads to then create a master evaluation before the retreat in September for each person. So like I said, before it was me doing one rubric, and that's what we talked through. This year, there will hopefully be multiple rubrics that all come together into one rubric, and then the leader that's going to meet with you individually will create a master rubric based on the feedback from everybody and their own input. And that will be the rubric that you guys talk through.
I was just wondering if there was an interaction that I've had with someone, can I ask them if they would do an evaluation on that? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good idea, Liz. So for if anybody...
can you clarify? I think we're getting a little blended with what role and what interaction is. So like you hold multiple roles. You are, doing HR, you're doing marketing, you're doing whatever, but not all of us have multiple roles. We do tasks within those roles. So I think I'm now, based on Liz's comment, I'm a little unclear as to whether we're working on a project and interaction or the whole role.
So that's a great question, Kelly. What we started to find when we started to do these as leadership was that when I tried to look at the whole role, it was overwhelming to try to put that into a rubric format because it's such a small space and it just didn't allow for it, and we were trying to pull too many things. So I guess the real way to say it would not be so much role as those specific project, specific emails around one idea or interaction. For example, if you really wanted to focus on our connection with senior helpers, and I wanted to sort of assess how we all did in that, I could evaluate each of the people involved in that call, you, Joseph, and Teepa, on just that one piece, but it would just be about that senior helpers call. How did we conduct ourselves in that one instance? For some of us, we have lots of interactions, and it's going to be overwhelming if you try to do all of them at once. However, for some of you that are more sort of big picture focused, you may want to look at a project as a whole, you know, my monthly calls with you and how those have been going and whether that's been effective, and that's what you would rate me on. But you wouldn't then also, on the same rubric, rate me as a lead mentor when I've done a course with you. That would be a separate rubric that you would fill out. So rather than thinking about it as role, although that comes into the bottom half of the rubric, what is the role during this interaction? We're really looking at interaction, meeting, or project as a specific to each evaluation. If you want to do multiple evaluations on one person, that would be fine too. If you feel like, I want to say this, but it doesn't really fit this project, then you can always just do simply a second evaluation where all you focus on is that piece of the project that you really wanted to say. Does that help at all, Kelly, or you're still looking a little bit? Okay.
So it's an either or, just let's be clear. You could choose to evaluate someone on a project over time, but it's a relatively short time period, or you could evaluate in one interaction. That it was an important interaction, it had value, it had meaning, and you want to use that interaction to give feedback. So it's either, you can do it either way, but I'm not evaluating you in your entire role over the course of 6 months. It's an interaction or a project, essentially.
Yeah, where that role, that bigger evaluation will come in is the lead who then collects all of the evaluations, puts them all together, and Lisa's going to help with that, getting the numbers of all of the novice, all of the proficient for each of the categories, one master rubric, and then the lead will take that information and create one rubric that's directly from the lead that kind of evaluates you in your whole role. So there's that slight difference there, and that great question, Kelly. Liz?
Do we need to specify on the rubric whether it was just like one specific project or one interaction, like phone call, email?
If you like, at the top there's a place for relationship. So when you fill that out, you can say, phone call about X, I was support, this person was lead, or I'm lead and this person is support, or we were both support. But this is from a 2-day event that we did together. That's what I'm evaluating. Or you can just be really specific in your notes, because the feedback should still be open enough that it would be applicable to other situations if need be.
It is going to be in September at the retreat, or if you're not there, another time. If you fulfill multiple roles in PAC, you'll be getting with the leader for each of those role specifics, and you'll have a rubric result from each role. So as a mentor, as a leader of the service department, as a coach on X, you know, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, those different roles. Now, some of you have one role. It's administrative support. Oh, wait a minute. No, you're also on the licensing group, and you also do this. So very few of us have just one role in the company. It's possible, but most of you don't. So you'll probably be getting rubrics from different people because different people are leading those different things.
So the last piece to sort of go through is timeline and when and how are we doing all of this. So basically this starts today. I'll send out the blank document for you to everyone here and everyone that was included in that piece. I'll also send out this recording with that as soon as it uploads. And then you can pretty much get started right away. As we said, I would start small and start with people that you're more comfortable with so that you can go through this process without feeling too worried about assessing other people. But the goal is that in the end, everybody that you've had an interaction with, you're assessing. And that's because we all need feedback to be able to grow as a company. From every single aspect of this company, we work in so many different circles, and we're all over the country and Canada. So we've got to find a way that we can all give feedback in a way that's positive without it feeling scary or overwhelming. And that we can then kind of compile it and start to look at where are some areas that we as a company need to grow, and where can we help individuals grow as well. So anybody want to or need to say anything else? I'll include in the email the follow-up, Lisa's follow-up email to send all of your rubrics to, and sort of the process. Again, I'll go through the steps of once you filled out the rubric, send it to the person, offer a phone call, or you can ask for a phone call before you send them the rubric if you feel like it's a sensitive rubric that you really want to talk through first. So I'll reiterate that. Teepa?
Yeah, so in closing, everybody's responsible for helping everybody see where they are, go where they want to go. And to do that, everybody's got to participate. So that's where we're at. As hard as it's going to be, because I'm looking at all these faces going, crap, I know too many people and I do too much stuff. I don't know any of you. I've never met you. I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to evaluate any of you, but I probably will. Lauren is on the call because Lauren's part of our team. And Lauren, my best guess is you and I and Lynn will probably get together, the great triangle, and figure out who on the team you're familiar with and you want to give some feedback to and participate in. And we'll plan to do it as a verbal thing rather than a written thing. You're muted if you want to say something. You don't want to say anything?
There you go.
That's why. Now, actually,
Oh, you froze.
Good timing.
Amanda, I have no idea what a rubric even is.
Yeah, fair
We'll
enough.
talk.
Lauren, every single person on this call almost had that same question exactly a year ago, and I got in lots of trouble for using the word rubric. So it's a teacher thing. I apologize. It's that chart that I was showing on the call.
All right. So get to it, everybody. As soon as Amanda sends the form, let's get going, get it done. We'll have it as part of our routine. It'll just be part of our pattern pretty soon, and it'll help us be where we want to be. Within the next year, it'll just be what we do.
Yeah, hopefully after September, we'll get into being able to do it for a week of the month every month, and you won't have to do so many all at once. But unfortunately, this is where we are right now. So like I said, more in small doses. Don't get stuck. If you're spending more than 15 minutes on a rubric, you really maybe want to time out, take a break, figure out how to make this happen quicker, or ask for help. I'm very willing to go through as many rubrics as you need to go through this process and make it a little bit easier for everybody. So, all right. Well,